Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, bring you nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as First Person Shooter, as a cosplay photographer. I am still on Twitter until such time as that's no longer viable, as Burley underscore adopter, as a journalist, tech journalist, bunch of other things, general gadfly. We have a lot of interesting stories tonight. And the big story that is in the teaser image and in the title of all of the thumbnails and event descriptions just keeps getting bigger. I mean, more stuff has been added since I created that the event and that thumbnail at like 10:30 last night. So, Luminous, welcome to the show. What a taxing day it is. Okay. I'm sure there's some sort of term in there that I'm missing or reference, but you know, let me know. Um, Unless, of course, it's just you're saying you've had a very taxing day, and yeah, by all means, I hope it gets better for you. But anybody else, while you're out there, we broadcast this live on YouTube, on Facebook, and as you can see on the screen right here, on Twitch. So if you have any commentary while you're watching this live, feel free to share it on any of those platforms. We do love to respond to you live. And we're also going to ask that if you have a Twitch account that you go to that twitch.tv/nerdcaliber URL that's on your screen right now and consider following us there or being a subscriber. Trying to grow our numbers there to reflect what they're like on Facebook and YouTube. So we're going to jump right into the stories here because, like I said, that big story at the end just keeps getting bigger. There's more stuff gets tacked on to the end of it. So the first story is that we got an announcement of when we get season 2 of the Amazon Prime Video animated series Legend of Vox Machina. And we also got a red band trailer. So if you want to see all of these characters from the Critical Role D&D campaign, swearing their heads off like they did in season 1, you can actually go do that right now just by going to YouTube or Prime, I'm sure. Frankly, I was actually kind of surprised at how they toned down the crude language, at least in this teaser. That isn't an indication that it will be, the case. And honestly, I have no problem with the language. I thought they relied way too much in the first season on making the humor built around the use of the language. There doesn't need to be that if you're inherently funny. And many of the gags and the jokes worked. It's a action comedy animated fantasy series. So there is certainly a lot of drama. There's very high drama in it, but it kind of lives and dies on whether or not you find it funny as well. And for me, it was a mixed bag in the first season. I thought the dramatic stuff was really well done. I thought the voice acting, of course, was fantastic. These people have been doing these characters for close to a decade now, I think, in their live Critical Role Watch Us Play D&D campaign web series and YouTube series. So they know the characters and they're really good at them, but they also got a roster of talent to fill in as other characters in the, I was going to say campaign, in the series. And I got to give Bleeding Cool, which is where I have this particular story pulled up from, a little bit of a knock because they list a whole bunch of people who were in season 1 as guest stars include, while the article is about season 2. And I'm looking at it going, oh, okay, wait a minute. Didn't that person die? I could have sworn that character, I know that character died. So I went and I looked in IMDb, and yeah, they just pulled a whole bunch of names. Some of them, most of them are in fact from season 1. However, having gone to IMDb, I can say that guest stars in season 2 include Mary Elizabeth Winstead, The wonderful British character actor Ralph Ineson, who, if you want to see him live, you can actually watch him in the live action in Willow, the series on Disney Plus. I wasn't a fan. He's great. I wasn't a fan of the series, but you can read that in nerdcaliber.com, my review of it if you want. Troy Baker, Henry Winkler, Lance Reddick, awesome. Billy Boyd, and Cheech Marin. I'm looking forward to these guest stars. And then there are a few people who are coming back. Rory McCann as Duke Vedmeyer. It doesn't say so in this listing, but I'm pretty sure that Carrie Payton is back as the Sovereign Uriel Taldore. D&D names, man. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I liked a lot of what they did with the first season. They really needed to do something about that. It's essentially, dick and fart jokes is the nature of all their humor. They can do better than that. And hopefully they will. Hopefully the writers realize that. And that's reflected in this Red Band trailer, which is not nearly as crude as the Red Band trailer for the first season. So we'll see. But January 20th, we all get to see it. And like I said, I am looking forward to it. I actually quite liked much of the dramatic elements and the fantasy elements and the teamwork elements of the first season. Just stop concentrating on Scanlan being a perv and having him sing filthy songs. I mean, come on. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. And that is the trailer teaser, I guess, because it's kind of hard to call that a trailer, for the upcoming Greta Gerwig, Margot Robbie film Barbie dropped, and it's hilarious. Luminous, I rewatched the Barbie trailer, found a little time in between Gunn's tweets. Nicely done. It doesn't tell you anything whatsoever about what the movie is going to be about. There's a little bit at the very end that shows you some actual scenery in the movie. But as you can see here, basically it's a takeoff on the opening of Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, with Margot Robbie's Barbie as essentially the monolith. I'm not going to lie, my first thought on seeing this was Death by Snoo Snoo. Which, if you recognize that reference, good for you. But it was really funny. It was very well done. Whoever put this together, whoever came up with this concept, generally they're not the people involved. Like, it's not Gerwig, the director, or Baumbach, her husband and writer of it, that usually come up with these ideas. It is a trailer company. If that's the case, this trailer company definitely needs its trailer Emmy or whatever those awards are, if there are those things. I'm sure there are. It's really funny. It's really cool. You get to see Margot Robbie in a bathing suit. That's a win. Honestly, you got more of a flavor of what the movie is going to be like from the last teaser that they put out. So it's a little weird. I'm sure there will be actual more full trailers between now and July 21st, which is when this comes out. But Margot Robbie as Barbie, Ryan Gosling as Ken, directed by Greta Gerwig, who did Lady Bird, of course, and Little Women. Written by Noah Baumbach, who actually has an Oscar contender in the movie White Noise, that came out just a little while ago with Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig in it. So yeah, it's got quite the pedigree behind it for a movie that is literally the story of a plastic doll told by live action humans. So we'll see. We'll see how it looks. Again, go back to the original teaser if you want to get a sense of what it actually looks like. It looks bubblegum, and wonderfully so. And knowing the people behind this, that isn't going to be it's not going to stay that way, or it may stay that way aesthetically. It may look like that through the whole movie. I guarantee this is not going to be a 90 minutes or 2 hours of isn't the Barbie world great? Yay. So we'll see exactly what the story is and thematically what this is all about, as we get closer to the movie. But again, late July, big summer blockbuster, and I'm pretty sure it'll do well, assuming a resurge of COVID doesn't put us all back into hiding. Luminous, it's already looking much better than the Battleship movie. That is not, that's faint praise there, Luminous. And I think a better comparison, if we're talking about similar size figurines, would be the G.I. Joe movies. Now, because I always know my sister used to borrow my G.I. Joe dolls, we called them, even though you wouldn't use that term now as a guy, and to play house with her Barbie. So, but yeah, definitely anything's better than the Battleship movie. I mean, come on, that was the worst thing that many people involved has ever done. All right, moving on to our next one. I actually have this in the description a little bit wrong. I forgot that the Death Stranding 2 trailer was released at the Game Awards, which we would have covered last week if we'd had the time. So this is actually from Death Stranding 2, this particular shot here. But the news is actually there is going to be a Death Stranding movie, film adaptation, made by Kojima-san's Kojima Productions along with Hammerstone Studios. They will be producing the thing entirely, as far as I can tell. Somebody named Alan Ungar from Hammerstone and Kojima Productions US will be the executive producers. It doesn't say in this article in Deadline whether or not this will be a full live-action movie adaptation, or if it will be like the game, in which it is a fully acted motion capture that is then rendered in almost photorealistic 3D CG. And I looked really through it, and I can't find that they say for sure whether or not it's going to be one or the other. I'd like to think it's going to be live action, because otherwise you're basically just looking at a movie that's the cutscenes from Death Stranding. Although, I guess that wouldn't be the case because there's no details on the plot, but Deadline is saying that their people say that it will introduce new elements and new characters, and it is going to be written by Kojima Productions. Or at least the writing will be guided by Kojima Productions. So I'm very unsure about this, since it will introduce, according to Deadline, new elements and new characters. That doesn't indicate that we will see Norman Reedus or Mads Mikkelsen, Léa Seydoux, Guillermo del Toro, who actually acts in this, Margaret Qualley, all of whom are in the game Death Stranding and did all of their roles for the game as full motion capture and facial motion capture. That doesn't mean that we're going to get to see them in this movie. If I were to bet, I would say we're not. Because he's already used Seydoux and Norman Reedus for Death Stranding 2. If you saw that trailer, in which Norman Reedus' character Sam Bridges now has, hair as gray as mine, and a beard as gray as mine. Well, a beard as gray as mine. No hair there. So, I would say they will be creating a whole new story with new elements to the story and new characters, because, frankly, there's no really large studio behind this yet. Hammerstone is not a big studio. It's not like they've got Legendary Pictures or Universal or Fox or 20th Century or any of that behind this. It's Kojima, who made no question, made a ton of money with Death Stranding. but also spent a ton of money making it, and this Hammerstone Studios. So I'm going to guess they're going to be casting essentially relative unknowns with maybe one or two mid-level name. No idea when we're going to see it. They literally just announced it this last week that they're working on it, that it's going to be a movie. And so, we could be talking video game production timelines here. This could be 6 years. So in which case it'll, all be computer anyway, and you won't be able to tell. So a little bit of commentary on our AI art controversy going on right now. So if you're a big fan of Death Stranding or Kojima Productions work anyway, just check this out. Our next topic is all right. I'm going to be copacetic about this. This is obviously a screenshot from My Hero Academia, or actually an art shot from My Hero Academia. This is not, in fact, actually a screenshot from anything in the anime. The news is that Netflix has picked up the rights to a live-action film adaptation of My Hero Academia from Legendary Entertainment. So, good studio is doing it. The screenplay is going to be written by Joby Harold, who wrote Army of the Dead, or was a writer of Army of the Dead, and wrote on Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm not thrilled with that concept. But still no. And of course we know that Netflix, did the did the Death Note adaptation, and they don't have the greatest track record. It's going to be directed as the first English language live action film by Sato Shinsuke. And I had to look up this director's work. He most recently did more than a dozen episodes throughout a bunch of seasons of Alice in Borderland. So that's good. He did the live action Bleach, which I watched and I thought was pretty good. And I'm not that much of a Bleach fan, but I still thought it was a good movie. And many of my actual anime Bleach diehards thought it was a pretty good adaptation as live action. And he did apparently a live action adaptation of one of my absolute favorite animes, Inuyashiki Last Hero, which I haven't seen, so I'll have to look that one up. Mostly his work seems to be adaptations of anime properties. So we'll see how that goes. He's clearly got the chops from working in Japan on those things. That doesn't always translate to being able to pull that same thing off in the US for an English language audience. But we'll see. I got to say, this doesn't need to have one. And frankly, if you are a fan of My Hero Academia, you know that it took an entire first season of almost unwatchably slow character development to get to the point where you cared enough about any of these people to be invested in the story. My Hero Academia is widely known, even among its most ardent fans, as having just about the worst first season of anything that has now multiple seasons under its belt. How are they going to get around that? Are they just going to count on the fact that everybody is going to know who these characters are and they sort of jump in the middle of things? Frankly, that might be the best way to go. I'm really of mixed anticipation here. I'm hoping it's okay. I'm worried it's going to be as hot garbage as the Death Note live action was. Speaking of live action adaptations, this one has me a lot more excited. That right there is, of course, from the 2018 God of War game. And the news is that Amazon's Prime Video has ordered to series an adaptation of God of War. Now, it's going to be run by the showrunner will be Rafe Judkins, who was the showrunner of Wheel of Time. And the things that didn't work about Wheel of Time, I don't know are necessarily Rafe Judkins' problem. A lot of it was COVID. A lot of it had to do with one of their major, 6 leads just walked off set while they were filming the next to the last episode. So, it might not be his problem, or it might not have been his problem. They apparently couldn't delay releasing it any longer, so there was definite, in the last couple of episodes, there were definite problems with the visual effects. The story having to be rewritten to deal with the fact that this one particular character is now no longer in the story. They recast for the upcoming season. So they will get back to, a more normal adaptation. But, they got thrown some really horrible curveballs. So it may not be Rafe Judkins' fault that the first season of Wheel of Time was not as good as many people hoped it would be. But writing and executive producing this series are Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, who you may remember those names, you may have heard of those names, but if you haven't, they were the writers of Iron Man. They wrote the adaptation of Children of Men, one of the best, most amazingly adult, and I don't mean adult, I mean maturely adult science fiction stories put on film in decades. And they were the executive producers and showrunners for The Expanse. Those two names alone make me think that this could really be something, that this isn't going to be a God of War version of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. That really I'm really encouraged by their involvement, their direct involvement as writers of this adaptation. This particular article in Variety is saying that based on stuff that Amazon has put out about this, it will be based on the 2018 video game. So older Kratos with a kid in basically a Norse mythology story and world. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it would be great, even though everybody sees Kratos as a super pale guy with, the red makeup. I think it would be great if they cast Christopher Judge, who does the voice of Kratos, as Kratos. He is a black man, but he is the voice, and he certainly is big enough and strong enough and built enough, having played for years and years. Oh God, I can't think of the name of the character, and it's such a weird name. I'm not going to get it right if I try. But in Stargate, so cast Christopher Judge, folks. Please do this, and plus it would let all of the gamer gators that would literally just drop a kidney if they saw a black man cast in one of their favorite games that has a Greek guy in White Land in Norse mythology. It would make me so happy to see that happen. But I think it would also be a wonderful thing for Christopher Judge. Now, you could go another direction entirely. There are plenty of people out there who could do it. I think there are a bunch of fantastic options. But he's out there, and he does the voice, and he can act big, tough guys. So just think about it, folks. Just announced, so we have no idea when this is going to happen. And there's nothing in the article on Variety that indicates when it might happen. I'm guessing 2024 at the very earliest, because they've got all kinds of work to do. But they've got writers who are currently writing, and they're the kind of writers that I want to see more stuff from. if they bring any kind of the sensibilities to this series like they did to The Expanse, yeah, sign me all the way up. All right, folks, it's time to get into that last, I can't say last topic because at this point it's a whole series of topics. All right. So, starting with, this happened immediately after our show, the day after our show last week. And so it's been in there so long. I thought we actually covered this last week, but apparently we didn't. So, the first news, everybody knows this, I am sure. James Gunn has confirmed that Henry Cavill will not be Superman in the upcoming Superman movie that he is currently writing, that will be part of the very first slate of his and Peter Safran's DC Studios DC movies for Warner Brothers. In that article, he also said that Ben Affleck is in talks to possibly direct a future DC movie. He said that the direction of the story that they're taking has a younger Superman, and so they are going to recast that role. And of course, James Gunn has now been subject to even more hate than he did when the right-wing scumbags got him fired from Disney by pulling up garbage tweets he had made 10 years ago. The Snyderverse incel fans out there are just literally going nuts over the fact that their binky, Henry Cavill, is not going to be Superman, probably going forward at all. Because if they're recasting for a younger Superman, the idea is that they can take his story with that actor forward throughout whatever they're calling their different iterations of sets of movies. Gunn and Safran have presented, I think they've already presented it, they did it last week, and they won't be talking about it officially until after January 1st, a 10-year plan. That was their mission by David Zaslav, was to give them a 10-year plan of what DC movies will look like. So very shortly after that, Cavill confirmed it, that he is no longer be playing Superman. As he said it, my turn to wear the cape has passed. And now that once he confirmed it, of course, all the hate heading towards Gunn just quadrupled. The next day, literally the 14th, 15th, and 16th, the next day, Cavill dropped the news that he is going to star in and be the executive producer of a Warhammer 40,000 film and TV franchise from Amazon Studios. So if you know anything about Henry Cavill, he is a massive Warhammer 40,000 fan, loves the game, loves the figurines, loves everything about it, loves the lore, the novels, you name it. I gotta say, I know somewhat about Warhammer 40,000, mainly because when he was around 13 or 14, my son started getting into it, and God help me, there was a Games Workshop store that had just opened a couple of years ago at one of the closest malls to me here. And I was like, cool, this gives me something where I can just focus on one of his interests. We can do something about it while he's, here. And, this is great. It gives me presents, birthdays and Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And I went to a Games Workshop and he said, oh yeah, let's go look at a tank. I think it was a Necron, and I can't remember what they call their tanks, and I looked at the price tag of an unassembled, unpainted plastic model of a sci-fi space tank and went, okay. Thankfully, his interest moved into other things. He played it for quite a while and amassed quite a number of armies The army sets, the figurine sets for armies are actually quite a bit less expensive. Um, and read many novels. He was a big fan of the novelizations. Um, but he was right at that cusp where his interest started moving over into other things. And I'm like, dodged that bullet. I don't have Henry Cavill money. Let me tell you. So that's where I come from as far as my experience of what Warhammer 40K is. The Chaos Space Marines and the Space Marines and the Necrons and the Eldar and the Orcs and all that sort of stuff. And the bugs. I can't remember what the bugs are called. So there's so much content there for Cavill and his production company and whoever he brings on to write and direct and so on to turn into both a movie and TV series that he could be mining this stuff for decades, which means he doesn't need Superman or any of the rumors of him appearing in an MCU. Now, granted, this opens up the possibility that he could be a character in the MCU, although it probably wouldn't be somebody who was in there for the long haul. It might be a villain or a guest star who is going to come in and out of a couple of movies. A lot of people, have suggested Gladiator, from the Shi'ar Empire, but that the Empire hasn't shown up yet in the MCU, so who knows? I think this is obviously he landed on his 2 feet. He had been in development clearly of this for a long time to be able to make this announcement literally the day after he confirmed that he wouldn't be Superman. And yes, all of the stories out there are true. The only reason he made the post about him coming back as Superman and appeared in that spoiler end credits for Black Adam. Sorry folks if you haven't seen it. It has nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. But Henry Cavill as Superman appears at the very end or in a mid-credit scene in Black Adam. The only reason he did any of that was because Warner Brothers asked him to, because at that time Warner Brothers' plan was that they were going to bring him back. And then they announced that they were giving the entire control of DC movies to Gunn and Safran and DC Studios. And Gunn is a auteur. He is a filmmaker, and he has a vision, and he's going to work that vision. And he's made that abundantly clear at this point. Now, the latest shoe dropped literally just today, about 6 hours ago, 6.5 hours ago at this point. Dwayne Johnson went to Twitter and said that Black Adam will not be part of this first chapter of Gunn and Safran's DC Studios movies. The quote is, however, DC and $7, his production company $7, have agreed to continue exploring the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in future DC multiverse chapters. So I'm going to key on that one word, multiverse. This is Dwayne Johnson saying it, tweeting it, not James Gunn. But James Gunn didn't correct him in his own follow-up tweet where he said, love the Rock, and I'm always excited to see what he and $7 do next. Can't wait to collaborate soon. I think what that phrase means is that Gunn is creating a potential multiversal slate of DC content in which there will be a mainline Justice League type storyline with a newly rebooted Superman and so on, all basically sort of starting, I get the impression, and he's saying it's not an origin story. They're not telling Superman's origin again, so I'm guessing it's going to be when he's, just young, cub reporter Clark Kent, and still struggling to figure out how to be the Superman character type of story. And maybe that with all of the characters that he's going to be using in his Justice League. And I think that he is eventually going to be exploring, like they do in the comics, Earth 2, alternate Earth versions of some of these stories that they've already put out. So there could be a return of Black Adam and the Justice Society, and they would be in an Earth 2 or something along those lines. Similar to the way Greg Berlanti's Arrowverse worked, in which they took the actual concept of Earth 2 and the other alternate Earths and used them almost straight up out of the comics. Again, this is me reading into all of that, reading all of that into one word, tweeted out by Dwayne Johnson, not James Gunn, the creative head of DC Studios. So, but I would not be surprised at all that that's the case, because it fits so far into what we've heard about what Gunn is planning, how he's making big changes where he is essentially, it's pretty clear now, he's rebooting everything. And if he brings things into other universes, like they're continuing to make the Joker, or Joker Folie à Deux. And my guess is that Gunn is going to incorporate that at some point down the line as that's a different Joker universe. Not unlike, having the post-Flashpoint universe with that Thomas Wayne Batman. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that happens at some point. The Flash movie is going to happen. However much it gets rewritten, or they do additional shooting for it because of stuff that James Gunn is planning, we don't know. But if they're telling the Flashpoint story, that gives them the multiverse. It's right there. So I would not be at all in any way surprised to see some of these people coming back. It's entirely possible there is a Henry Cavill. Can you imagine 10 years from now, or say 8 years from now, before the 10-year plan is all up, Henry Cavill comes back in a Kingdom Come story? Let him have a little of that gray in his temple. Please, yes, let's have that happen. 100%. And I've said it again, Dave Bautista as Shazam, as DC Captain Marvel in Kingdom Come. Please. So I anticipate next week we will have pretty close to the same number of stories about what's going on in the DC cinematic universe and related people and properties and content that are things that happen because of changes in the DC universe, like Henry Cavill announcing his Warhammer stuff. In fact, I think that's going to happen basically right through until Gunn finally comes out and announces sometime in early January what his plans are for the first 10 years, or at least the first part of that. And Gunn and others have used the term chapter. This article in Deadline calls it at one point the first phase of DC's new plans. Please do not use that term, Deadline. That gets everybody confused with Marvel Phase 4, Phase 5, and so on. Chapter works fine. Chapter is the term that Dwayne Johnson used. It's the term that James Gunn used. Let's call it that. All right, folks, that's it. That is the end of our show. Like I said, stay tuned next week for more James Gunn news. At least I would not be surprised whatsoever. Before we go, we are going to ask you to go visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Check it out. Consider being a patron. We'd love to have you. The YouTube algorithms, normally everybody gets an end of the year bump, and I am seeing all kinds of creators, us included, not getting that like we have in years past. So whatever YouTube has done to the algorithm, they're continuing to mess with it. God, we could really use the help on Patreon. So go to Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We have 3 tiers. $2 is the lowest tier, and that money will help us go to new cons, other cons, different cons, get you more content for YouTube, for the website, nerdcaliber.com, and things like that. And of course, in the meantime, please stay safe, wear the mask. My brother, sister-in-law got COVID at a holiday party. Twitter friend just announced they got COVID at their holiday party. At least 3 other friends on various social media, Twitter and so on, have just put up the picture of their little COVID test, and they have COVID. I don't know if they're all from their holiday parties, but whatever. Wear a mask. Please wear a mask. And according to one thing I've read, the uptake in the last booster, the most effective booster, is not nearly what it has been in the past. I'm 100% convinced that that booster is the reason why my brother's COVID was, as he described it, kind of a mild cold. And please, folks, get the booster, get the newest, the bivalent booster, get your flu shot, and wear a mask. Flu is out there. It's a pretty rough one. Of course, COVID is still out there. And there's that RSV, respiratory virus. There's a lot of things that's going to keep you sick if you go to holiday parties if you are not prepared. Be prepared. Do the smart thing. Anyway, we'll see you at an upcoming show. Good night and bye.